Welcome to today's episode, where we take a deep dive into evaluating small business sales motions for the prospective ETA entrepreneur. Whether you're assessing a potential acquisition, conducting some due diligence, or maybe a new operator just getting ready to jump in, these are going to be some great tips and tricks for you to think about the sales motion in this particular business. A lot of searchers have a thesis that they can come into a new business, potentially modernize, maybe digitize some of the processes, bring in a little bit of a higher marketing and sales acumen, and improve the business over time. We'll walk through today a really structured model to think through what does that sales team look like, what does the technology platform look like, and how much can you really move the needle in that. Stay tuned for a part 2 where we'll also talk more about marketing. So first of all, let's talk about the broad thesis in ETA, or sometimes it's called search. Buying a small business and growing it slowly over time. This is a really hot area right now and a great way that acquisition entrepreneurs are building wealth. The overall thesis is that many of these businesses have potentially been underinvested in over the past maybe decade or 2 decades. They're run by fantastic entrepreneurs that have built and created a very important business in their community over a long period of time. However, they probably haven't focused on growth as much as the sort of hungry new search entrepreneur might be doing. And maybe they don't have modern marketing strategies. Maybe they aren't as professional about sales. And so there's this broad thesis that a search entrepreneur can jump in, make a couple of tweaks, and see some really meaningful improvements in the business. I think a lot of that might be true, but I think it's also really important for you to due diligence. How will you exactly do that? Just bringing some focus into the business is not going to help it grow. So what you really want to understand and go through in your due diligence process is understand what is the sales motion today? What does the marketing look like? And what are the real tangible tactics that you can deploy to make improvements. So we're going to talk about 2 main areas for sales. First of all, the team and the technology. So we're going to go through those 2 components in this episode today. And then what we will do in the next episode is we'll talk a little bit more about the marketing. How are you getting leads? What does that process look like? And then you can kind of bring those 2 together for your ETA due diligence process. So let's jump right in. So first of all, let's talk about the team maturity model. And what we really see is that there are sort of 3 types of sales teams for many of these small businesses. And obviously, this can really depend on the size of the business that you're buying. We're probably really talking about the 200 to 2 million in EBITDA business here. If you're bigger than that, there could be a lot of different structures. And obviously, there can be a tremendous number of structures for sales teams. But we're really focusing in here on sort of the smaller end of the spectrum, probably what a self-funded searcher would be looking at, and really more focused in the home services industry. But sort of the first most common thing that we hear from the searchers that we work with is, when they took over the business, there was someone working the front desk and they were part-time doing sales. I think what, we hear a lot, and I want people to be really careful about, is that this is not a dedicated salesperson. They have a lot of other tasks and responsibilities. And so there can be 2 downstream implications of this. First, the cost of sales is going to be really hidden in the P&Ls. And so it's probably accounted for somewhere else. And so it looks like sales are kind of cheap and your customer acquisition costs aren't really what they actually are. So that's sort of watch out number 1. And it's going to make the margins of the business look really good. The second thing is that, if there is even a sales process, it's probably not followed consistently. Sometimes calling on leads and doing sales is a really nerve-wracking thing for a lot of people, and especially somebody who might be used to engaging with your team, stocking supplies, getting the trucks ready or the schedules ready. They might feel like those operational responsibilities are more important than sales. So this might be something that consistently gets put into the back burner. So that is one really common model. And yes, there can be a lot of opportunity on how to improve that. And we'll talk about some tips and tricks on how to figure that out pretty quickly too. So the second thing would be a full-time sales representative. And so this person is completely dedicated to business development. And if this is the owner, that doesn't count. The owner has a lot of other jobs and will obviously always jump in with really important and strategic sales. But this would be somebody who's full-time, dedicated to working leads. And think of like a B2C home services business, this is probably going to be a little bit larger. Either it's a larger business, a larger franchise territory, or maybe a multi-unit franchise. One of the things that can be more challenging with multi-units is that you have more geographies to cover. And so if you need to provide in-person quotes, then that can be a little bit tricky. They might have to work, Mondays and Tuesdays in one geographic region and Thursdays and Fridays in another geographic region. And so that can impact your speed to lead. A lot of customers that are calling in want quotes, want information really quickly. So think about whether that process is in person or over the phone and how that's being done. And then the third thing that we see is that there's a dedicated sales leader and a team with multiple reps handling all the aspects of the sales in different geographies. Sort of to build on the recent example that we just gave, this could be where you have a sales representative in each geographic region or, sort of central to each major geo that's in the business's operating area to help provide the quotes, be responsible for those, and even to do the in-person quotes if necessary. We are seeing a lot less in-person quoting across a lot of businesses that historically did in-person quoting. This could be like free consultations for dog training. This could be in-home quotes for home cleaning and pest control. And so we're seeing a lot of these shift to over the phone because the speed to lead is so important and people want the information quickly. What we generally see here is that it is the owner that is the sales leader of these different teams. And so that is definitely a burden on some of those owners where they are actively spending a pretty reasonable percentage of their time going meeting with their sales team, reviewing pipelines, going through tactics and things like that. So these are three different models that we commonly see in sort of the smaller end of the spectrum of search acquisitions. And they have a lot of different implications of how you might evolve and might be able to transform the sales process. So I think this is really important to think about because as a new owner, this is what you're going to be coming into, this is what you're going to be managing, and there are going to be different tactics that you might take to improve the sales process for each of these. The second main thing to think about is, what is the state of their CRM and the data management? And again, we see sort of really commonly three different levels of capabilities here. The first would be that there is, essentially no data management. All the sales may just be in email. There might be a more operationally focused CRM, but it's not really tracking pipeline stages, quotes, and so that would be sort of tier one. I think one thing to sort of say as a word of caution for a lot of more technology-oriented search entrepreneurs is that there can be really effective sales processes that are deployed through this type of low data management process, but it's going to be harder to scale that. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. And then the next thing is that, there could be a lightweight CRM or even just a spreadsheet that we're using to track leads, track sales, and so this would be sort of level two. This is obviously more helpful if there are more team members getting involved in the sales process. And there might be some automations like text messages, email nurture campaigns, but really lacks an integration with sales performance. And then the integrated sales and marketing platform generally. And so this is where there's going to be a CRM that's really supporting the sales team. It is where people call from. Call recordings are stored here, text messages, emails, everything is housed in one system that's managing the pipeline. And so, this is going to have a lot more advanced tracking. This will tie into our marketing conversation. Probably getting things like lead sources, conversion rates, and your sales funnel effectiveness by lead source. This would obviously be sort of more best in class, but is not necessary either to have in your due diligence process. If you're missing something like this, that could be a great add-on to be able to build, because the cost of these has come down tremendously. So the pros and cons of each of these levels of sort of the CRM and the data management, I think really has to do with the scale that you're looking for. If you're really trying to grow and build a much larger business, you're going to need to move up to some sort of CRM or even that tier 3, the integrated sales and marketing platform. And if you're at sort of tier 1, where it's really being managed via email, probably do have some pretty basic opportunities to at least start to move the needle on your conversion rates and your sales pipeline. That could be really helpful. However, I would just sort of call out that, many of these search entrepreneurs or these small business owners are incredibly good at what they've done, and so they don't need automated systems to sell well. So even if you're not seeing a sophisticated sales platform or CRM, it still may be difficult to sort of outcompete what a incredibly skilled owner operator is able to produce. So here are a couple, really 2 recommendations for you in this due diligence process to help you evaluate both the team and the CRM and the data, and what we'd recommend so that you can really have a good understanding if you're going to be able to boost the sales capabilities of the business you're looking at. And the first is do a competitor analysis in your market, and maybe even some other markets that maybe you aspire to be more like. So test 3 to 5 competitors, fill out their lead forms, give them a call, observe their nurture sequences, their follow-ups, and their sales process. I do this all the time for our clients, looking at their competitors. How do they follow up? Are they doing in-person quotes? Are they doing over-the-phone quotes? What do their text message nurture sequences look like? What do their email nurture sequences look like? What is that follow-up cadence? How many times do they call? These are all things to really understand what they're doing. And even many times you can backdoor into what systems and platforms they're using. If they do have email nurture sequences, it tells you how they're being sent. Often, like, the constant contact logo is at the bottom, or whatever platform that is, they haven't hid that. And so you can see what they are using to understand and potentially reverse engineer some of that if you wanted to. The second thing is to try and get some call recordings. I think this is probably one of the best data sources in the due diligence process. Get 50 and analyze and listen to all of these sales calls from the owner or their sales team. You're going to learn so much in this, and a couple of things to keep an eye out for. What are your customers telling you? What are their common objections? Is there a consistent sales process to handle those objections? And, this will also give you what are the real concerns. Price is usually a really common one. Are they objecting about price? Are we discounting? Are they objecting about other components of the service that you might need to adjust or update over time to try and capture those types of customers and increase your conversion rate? And then, you're also just really going to understand, like, how adaptive and flexible is this business? Are they, really accommodating customers, or are they holding to their service and their standards? I think that this is a really interesting one, and probably not really as talked about because we think, hey, there's a product, there's a service, but in home services, things can be so unique. It needs to be really tailored to a specific customer, to their home, to that market. And so understanding how flexible that business is also going to give you an idea of, how committed are they to getting more sales, and how operationally capable are they of adapting to each of these unique customer requests. that might sound kind of crazy. So I wanted to have a few examples of this, but we were working with for example, a home cleaning client, and we were told that there were gold inlaid dishes that must be hand washed. And so, how flexible is a business that doesn't typically wash dishes, and their SOP said, hey, all the dishes got to be out of the sink and put away. And this person said, no, like I need you to hand wash these gold inlaid dishes. And so that's something where, you will get an idea of, how committed is this business to growth? How, far are they willing to go? Do they move outside of sort of their standard operating procedures to get a customer, or what types of customers are they willing to do that? So this due diligence process of analyzing competitors, understanding their sales process, and really listening to a pretty diverse set of the business you're targeting's calls will give you a really good idea of, what is the type of impact you're going to be able to have when you come in. Are you going to come in and build the sales team, move them from a sort of part-time role to a full-time role? Are you going to be moving up the spectrum on the data and the CRM? And then how much are you going to shift that sales mindset to really push to get more conversions? And are you going to be able to actually operationalize those types of requests and accommodations that you make to win more business? So really hope this has been a couple of helpful tips and tricks for you to think about. I bet no one has ever said, hey, get some sales recordings, call recordings from the business that you're due diligencing. I think that could be one of the greatest ways to learn about the top end of the funnel for the business you're looking at, and give you a really great idea on what types of changes you might be able to make and the impact that that will have on your top line. So for ETA and search entrepreneurs, sales due diligence is a really crucial part of your process. Understand the current sales motion, the team structure, the CRM and the data, the competitive landscape that you'll be going up against. And I hope that this will help you be able to make better acquisition decisions and set your business up for scalable growth after you acquire it. If you found today's episode helpful, please be sure to subscribe and share. Stay tuned. The next one will be more about the marketing side of that due diligence. Talk soon.